I met the patriarchy on steroids twice last week and didn't find the right words. It's spring in the Hudson Valley, and the plants are bursting out of the soil wherever you look. Seedling pop-ups are everywhere. The birds are going crazy. The red-winged blackbird is singing its head off while I patiently await the first thrill of the hummingbirds, which I'm told have arrived in KERHONKSON already. My feeder is strategically placed within view of my writing table on the front porch, so I can see when they arrive, dive-bombing each other from tree branches to get a place of the red nectar feeders, trilling and laughing. It's also the time for food pop-ups. My friend Michelle hosted a pop-up of Korean street food last week at the Starlight Motel, a place that on Friday nights is a bit like an English village pub. You can sit at a table and find yourself talking to whoever is around. The difference being that people don't buy rounds of drinks for each other like they do in England, and it's outdoors and not quaint. Or rather, it has a 1950s quaint, not the British 17th century kind of quaint. But that is not my point. My point is, I went to my friend's Korean pop-up one dreamy, uncharacteristically warm spring evening, and found myself sitting next to the patriarchy on steroids. It began innocuously enough. Someone was carrying a puppy from table to table, and while the people at my table admired it, we started to talk about our own dogs, me, the POS as I will call him, and Mark, Michelle's husband. Mark also likes the pub-like feel of Starlight because while he hails from Japan, he went to school in England and understands why they should also be selling chips here, because no self-respecting English pub sells beer without offering packets of yummy crisps or chips to soak up the alcohol. That night, the POS was the only one among us drinking alcohol, and it seemed he'd drunk quite a bit already. Nonetheless, I was attracted to his accent, French. As we chatted, I wasn't sure if he'd noticed mine, as Europeans tend to do, because the conversation that was unfolding was taking place almost exclusively between the two men. I joined in as best I could, don't get me wrong, but only Mark gave me the honour of his eye contact, while the POS responded to any comment I made while looking at Mark. This is something I hadn't experienced for decades. It was the norm in the 1970s and 1980s when I was growing up, one of the many subtleties of the patriarchy that drew me to feminism in the first place, sparked in no small part by the number of nights I stood at the periphery of a group of young men at my boyfriend's village pub, glass in hand, while he and his mates laughed and joked and slapped each other on the back. I was arm candy, an appendage to be seen, kissed occasionally and proprietorily, but not heard. Most women are familiar with this, vying for attention by laughing uproariously at mediocre male jokes, inserting witticisms to show that we too can be one of the boys. I've done enough of that in the past, and as soon as I realised I was doing it again, and in my bubble of sanity in New York State no less, where the men I know are kind and interesting and not afraid to give you eye contact, I gathered my drink and bag and stood up to leave the table. But just then, the POS turned to me, looked me directly in the eyes and said, "You're from England." His eyes were dark and deep and brown like my brother's, and I stopped in my tracks. I was missing England. The rolling hills, thatched roofs, winding roads and pubs, the cool, drizzly rain. But I hadn't had the heart to go back since my mum had died 4 years earlier. Now, here was someone who was a neighbour, someone who grew up just across the water from me, someone who understood what it was like to be an immigrant, to love your new land yet miss your old. I sat down again as Mark stood up to go to the bar. "Yes," I said, "and you're from France?" He nodded, and my francophone enthusiasm burst out of me like the birdsong of the red-winged blackbird. "I always thought I'd end up in France," I said. "I love it there so much. I taught there for a year as an English assistante for my degree in the Dordogne." "The Dordogne," the POS said, "so beautiful. It hasn't changed a bit. Have you been to Paris lately?" "Not lately," I said, the last time having been for for a Doctors Without Borders General Assembly in the early 2000s. Not lately at all. That's where you're from? Yes, he said. I can't imagine leaving, I said. Well, you would if you saw how it's changed, he said. Full of dirty immigrants now, coming from all over, living on the streets, not washing. Nobody has a plan for them. They come believing the lies given by traffickers, and now they have no future and are making France dangerous. I did not expect that. Wow, you sound like Trump, I said. Realising that he also sounded like the right-wing politician in France, Marie Le Pen, who'd recently been defeated at the polls when progressives of different parties came together in a united front. You know they're fleeing wars and persecution and economic problems caused by colonial powers like France and the UK. My taxes were better under Trump, he said with a sly smile. Trying not to admit he voted for him, I thought, unable to counter my brilliant counterpoint about refugees. So, you vote simply based on your own personal benefits, I said. He shrugged. Macron is far, far worse than Trump. I'd take Trump over Macron any day. Macron's not a rapist, I said. That's a low bar, but it's enough for me. But anyway, I can't chat with someone who supports a rapist as president. I got up, picked up my drink, and flounced away, leaving him red-faced and speechless. Or so I wish. No, I didn't do those things. I didn't say those things. I wish I had, because he really did say those things. But responding aggressively, I rationalised, would have been counterproductive and lead to even more polarisation. I tried instead to find our common humanity, channeling the Buddhist teacher Thich Nhat Hanh, who teaches us that we are all interconnected, and who himself was a refugee in France. Yes, refugees are lied to by a lot of people, I said, and they're so desperate to leave wars, or persecution, or poverty, that they take the risk anyway. Imagine being that desperate. He looked pensive. I would never put my children in danger on a boat. They are bad parents, he said. I have friends who work rescuing refugees from those boats, I said smugly, going on to use the French name for Doctors Without Borders, hoping to find common ground that way, with Médecins Sans Frontières. They often have no other choice, and they've a right to asylum under international law. Better they're received well and given benefits and integrated into society, that their children get what all children deserve, safety, education, healthcare, and aren't you and I immigrants too? I'll have to think about that, he said quietly. Perhaps thinking about his own children, perhaps thinking about how fortunate we were to emigrate legally, with money, access, privilege. Well, none of that happened either. Other than in my head in the days that followed. Instead, when he used the term dirty immigrants, I froze. When he said that Macron is worse than Trump, I did not bring up that Trump is a rapist. When he launched upon a tirade of more hate, his face turning red, spittle gathering in the corners of his mouth, I didn't think about clever ripostes or finding common ground. I went into female survival mode. Appease, remove, flee. When Mark came back from the bar, smiling, totally unaware of why POS looked so flustered, and I likely looked so small, I took the opportunity to quietly exit the table and join Michelle at her pop-up in the car park for some much-needed female solidarity. I met the Patriarchy on Steroids again just a few days later at the plant store, Hudson Valley Seed Company to be exact. And if you want to know if I did the right thing, you have to read the book, because I don't have time to read the whole thing. So now I'm going to read the last chapter. It's very short, and I hope sweet. So chapter 13.